Welcome to Bounce Back is Easy, India's only portal for motivation and mental health. Hi Vivek, good morning. How are you?
Hello, Anujuti. Good morning. I am absolutely wonderful. How are you?
Very good. Thank you very much for asking, and thank you once again for joining this session. It's a pleasure to have you here. As you know, we are going to discuss about your life journey so far, and your venture Pragyan Advisory. So we are very keen to hear from you, your thoughts, your mindset of how your journey unfolded from a very well settled corporate traditional career to now being an entrepreneur of a very promising firm called Pragyan Advisory. So for my audience, I'll just share. Vivek is a personal friend of mine, over 2 decades of experience. He has worked across very large corporate houses, global MNCs, Amex, PwC. His last assignment in corporate was with Amazon, where he was the global talent head of APJC region. He had some 18 countries under his belt. He has also been part of founding team for various startups and budding firms. He has been the one of the founding team member of technology-based talent company called Think Talent. And right now, I think over the last couple of years, he has ventured in his journey of entrepreneurship. He has opened his own firm called Pragyan Advisory, and he's doing extremely well. So we would, without taking much more time, Vivek, I would like to hear more from you about yourself, about your firm, and most importantly, what has been your journey in life. We all are very keen to hear about.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Anujuti, for actually, it was a lovely introduction. To hear about your journey, professional part from somebody else in such a lovely manner, suddenly it makes you feel who is he talking about? Is he talking about me? Okay, he's talking about me. A minor correction, I was the regional head of the global talent management team for Amazon in my last corporate assignment. Of
Right.
course, yes, the region was Asia Pacific, Japan, China.
Why don't you start about your latest venture that you have jumped into, Pragyan Advisory? What it does?
Pragyan.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, Pragyan is very close to my heart. I think Pragyan Advisory is a boutique advisory firm, consulting firm, operating in three areas: uh, leadership, uh, teams, and organizational cultures. So those are the three areas where I would say we are passionate about. We have some amount of experience and exposure, and in a very honest manner, we try to create solutions and co-create solutions with business leaders, with HR teams, with employees together to create meaningful solutions which help the organization grow, which help the organization enable its strategy to give consistent results. It enables organizations to align their workforce from top to bottom. It also enables the organizations to release immense human energy and potential, which at times is left untapped. And there are many surveys which will say people are not engaged, they are not motivated, only this much percentage of population is highly engaged, so on and so forth. So I think that as we progress more towards a society which is becoming technologically advanced, I think it's sort of very discomforting to know that the percentage of actively engaged people in businesses is not increasing significantly. That's personally something which, in a way you would say I've taken it as a mission to make a small difference there, because if we make a small difference there, I think it can have a huge macro difference, not only in organization, in society at large, and then in a micro unit called family neighborhoods, because if people are genuinely happy expressing themselves in the work arena, I think it has a lot of impact in other dimensions. So that's Pragyan. I think it's in its incipient stage. uh, I am very lucky and fortunate to have a wonderful partner, uh, not only from the point of view of experience and competence, which has its own importance, I think, moreover as an individual, very grounded and an amazing human being. So I think when you start out a venture, it's like marriage, you know and if you're doing it with somebody else, you ought to have that much of comfort with the person. So I'm lucky. That is one. Secondly, I think it just helps you in the initial stages. And I'm not saying it's a very tested template, but it's my view that a single individual starting an entrepreneurship journey versus maybe two people, it helps, because there are times when there are ups and downs. There are times when you start questioning a lot of things. So it's great to have somebody else who's there with you in that journey, who can, help you out, and at times you can help the other person out, and therefore the journey continues against all the odds. So that's Pragyan, a very niche boutique leadership consulting firm in the areas of leadership, team, or culture. uh, we have our own set of methodologies. At the same point in time, we have tie-ups presently with three global, I would say, one of the best leadership and OD consulting firms with immense amount of experience and great amount of research, tested research in this area, and they've worked with many organizations across the globe. So we are lucky to partner with them and learn a lot from them, and being a part of their network definitely helps. So yeah, that's Pragyan, and I'm excited to talk a little bit more about it, but I think in the beginning that would be good enough to start with.
No, that's very interesting, Vivek. And as far as I understand, because we have been talking about it a lot, so actually Vivek is trying more to give professional nirvana to people like us, right, who are in the corporate and who are trying to find meaning in as part of our job. So thank you very much, Vivek. It's a great initiative. It's a great intervention that you're doing, and we hope you great success in times to come. Also, Vivek, like if you could also share about, so your service is very clear. Is it right now and focused only on the Indian market, or we have seen you have some branch offices in Middle East and other places. So is it now catering to only the Indian region, or is it more you have ventured outside India?
We have reached through our global partners. That's definitely there. So they help us, we help them, both in terms of solutioning, in terms of business development, in terms of delivery. We also have, I would say, some very promising, authentic, very competent community of people. And I would request your audience, if they're interested, to go to our website, visit our website, and see them. Amazingly great people, and they are not only in India, they're also based out of India, in the Middle East, in Europe. So that way, I think that we are able to service clients outside India. Currently, I think our focus at this point in time is more in India. We're trying to sort of establish ourselves here, uh, with some sort of clients who genuinely seem to believe in the three areas that I talked about.
Mhm.
And when you talk to people, when you meet senior leaders, when you interact with the folks within the organization, you get to know, what we call the, you can in the air, it is visible that whether
Mhm.
people genuinely believe in this or not, where
Right.
they believe in this. And I think in India there are many organizations who genuinely believe in this, and not only the big ones, but also, uh, I would say, a lot of startups which are coming up, attaining a certain scale, uh, and some very promising, young entrepreneurs are creating value, and they know that these things are important. uh, so I think India definitely is the focus. Through our network, through our community, we definitely are able to cater to the markets outside India. But I would say for another year or so, the focus still would remain India.
No, thank you. Thanks for sharing that, Vivek. So we would be very keen to understand if you can unfold your life's journey, because you were in companies like Amazon, a very, very senior position. I know that you have been like traveling, you have been like managing workforce in different geographies. So from there, how did you think of actually opening a boutique consulting firm? Uh, and maybe I'm sure there would be challenges, and you would probably still be facing challenges where you have to do every bits and pieces yourself. So, what has been the thought process? What has been the mindset? What has been your driver for this change? Is it like you wanted big success? Is it wanted to you make big bucks? Is it about finding meaning in life. So if you can elaborate about your life's journey and the driver for this decision.
Life journey, you'd want me to a little bit about the beginning, the starting point, and then moving into the professional arena. You'd like to focus more on the professional part only.
No, I'm very happy to have a holistic experience of your life, but with a focus on what prompted you to make this change, because you were actually you're in a path to become a global leader, right? And doing extremely well, very well coveted job. And I know after that you were also in a partner in a consulting firm. So leaving those and then taking a plunge at a stage of career you are in is very startling. So if you can share, keep that in mind.
So, of course, everyone ascribes meaning as per their own capability and their own experiences and view of their lives. I had this, I would say it was not a sudden decision. This was brewing for a very long time. And it has to do strongly with something that I am driven, I believe in. You call it values, you call it drivers, whatever. I think there are 2, 3, 4 things which I am really driven by. I think one is autonomy. So that's very important for me. Second is creativity, and third is deep connections. I think those are the 3 things that again and again I realize are great drivers for me. So what I figured out over a period of time is that this very strong need for autonomy uh, wanted to express itself, and in any kind of corporate structure there came a point where I realized that it's not about what the corporate is offering me, how great my manager is, but I want to do it as per my own way, uh, in a very in quite a lot of dimensions. And therefore, for me, I realize that it's important that I am able to design things, I am able to create things in my own way, which I realized that at some point in time, uh, one of the possible outlets to manifest this would be to start my own ventures. So that thought, I think, was clear uh, long ago when I started working, and after an initial few job changes I realized that this is something that is consistent. uh, was I able to give exact names to them at that stage? No, but somewhere you feel it, that this is what the need is, this is what the inherent driver is. uh, Now things happen, you gun for them, you create your own destiny, and things also happen. So over a period of time, the career has been, partly doing roles in sales, operations, business development, uh, accidentally landed up in a space called leadership and capability development, worked within organizations, as you mentioned, like American Express, HCL, great organizations, Amazon, so on and so forth. Then suddenly got interested in entrepreneurship and joined a technology-based talent company, still doing wonderfully well. So got exposed to from a big organizational setup, where you have this whole idea of whatever you contribute, at the end of the month, most likely there will be a certain amount of money that will be there in the bank account. With that kind of surety and security, I think, and at that stage I still remember my daughter was just 8, 9 months old. So I moved to a firm where we wanted to create something, but the the location was sort of a small bungalow, and so it was interesting move, where you are driven, you are passionate, you have energy, you have belief, conviction, and you are trying to create something. And then there is enough space for you to do what you want to do. So entrepreneurship happened after that because of some personal reasons. I was there for 4.5 years, I think. uh, Joined a big consulting firm like PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, in their management consulting division. So experienced what it means to be a part of a network firm, which has enormous brand name, great credentials. So in some ways, the entry point is easy, and in some ways, there are newer set of capabilities that you need to build. For example, now you have to operate at scale. You know, So I think all those experiences of my life, somewhere, some which I voluntarily, did something, some things just happened along the way. Somewhere I think they were trying to come together to eventually tell me that, these three lanes, so to say, and I'm not calling them distinct lanes, of having a career internally within great organizations, uh, being a part of an entrepreneurial journey at an early stage of life, and then being a part of consulting firms offering consulting services to others. How do these three journeys, lanes, converge in a meaningful manner and also allow you to express your internal self, which is driven by autonomy, creativity, and deep connections? I think invariably the outlet was to start up my own venture, and start up my own venture in an area which I have a lot of faith in. And it's like you may be investing enormous amount of time, but it is not drudgery.
Mhm.
You are very happy when you go to bed. Physically or mentally, you may be tired or exhausted, but from deep satisfaction standpoint, it's an amazing feeling. Okay. Now, this is not to say that everybody should become an entrepreneur, but I am sharing my experiences that this is what guided me. Was I the one who was very clear from the very beginning, like few people are, that I have to do this? This is 10 years I'll be here in my professional career, 15 years I'll be here, and in 20 years I'll start up my own firm. I don't think so. It happened in my own way, step by step. I think I was moving towards this arena. Somewhere I was taking very proactive measures, and some things were also happening parallelly, and it all came together. That's how it happened. If you ask me from a journey standpoint, that's how it happened. It was not absolutely planned. I would not say I'm that kind of a person. You knew it from the very beginning that 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, that's the way it's going to happen. No.
Okay, okay. No, this is very interesting. And the three things that you mentioned: autonomy, creativity, and deep sense of connection. These, I think, every individual who treads on a path of corporate journey at some point of time, in different proportion, feels about it, right? Because this autonomy piece always comes in. A willingness to create something which is of worth and meaning. Keeps kind of haunting people. But the issue that normal people face is, how do they balance risk, right? Risk of jumping in that bandwagon with and manage the survival forces with catering to meaning in life. So how did you do that? Because I'm sure at a stage of life you are in, you have your responsibilities, you have your kids, you mentioned, you would have your all other, like, and then most importantly, there's a social stigma, right? Because your colleagues in 2 decades experience would be like now becoming global heads, you would become who's who in career, right? And then for you to manage that, I'm not saying that it's how much importance you ascribe to that, but managing that social, the right word would be probably social, force, right? Which kind of impacts on all of us, that where is my batchmate, who is my, am I becoming junior to my junior, or things like that. So how do you manage risk around that?
I think these are genuine questions. They I've faced them when I was with American Express, and I would have had how much, 9-10 years of experience. And the idea was now going to an entrepreneurial venture, which was just starting up. I was in the founding team in a way. So this question came to my mind that today, when I go out, I work with American Express. And then after that, there's not much to say about the organization because people know the organization. It's a great organization, amazing history, great leadership. So people know it globally. Now, imagining that the same conversation happens, and now I have to take a name of an organization which we are just starting up, and then people say, "Oh, what did you say? What this company is all about?" And then you was trying to sort of explain it. How would I feel? So I think the test is that how would I feel if that matters a lot to you? I think then the person should reassess and reevaluate that is it the right time to move. When you are an entrepreneur, I think a lot of strength that you are drawing from inside your inner source, because it's your own conviction that you are trying to draw strength and energy from, and that propels you to move forward. If somewhere you realize that the source of energy is significantly dependent on certain things which are external, and in this case it's the name of the company that you are associated with, I think maybe it's time to honestly reassess and reevaluate. That is one. For me, of course, it was difficult. It wasn't easy. So somewhat, and I think you mentioned about risk also. Somewhere you alluded to risk. So risk. If you ask me, to my mind, risk would be that what is the worst case scenario that I am subjecting myself and my near and dear ones to, vis-a-vis what is it that I am really missing out today and tomorrow. So if I sort of try to place the two things together, I am definitely in a situation where I will say, well, it makes sense to take a plunge right now. So for example, becoming an entrepreneur, independent entrepreneur, it was brewing in my mind, and I was sort of trying to evaluate it. And the answer to this question, which is about what is the worst case scenario that I am subjecting, that I may be subjecting myself and my near and dear ones, versus what am I really promisingly missing out if I don't take that call. I was not very convinced few years back, and therefore, because I was not convinced, I did not take that decision then. Okay, but as the years passed, and then of course from that you also try to ask questions that why is it, what is the risk that is there in your mind, what is the best worst case scenario that you are at this point in time imagining, what do I do to mitigate this worst case scenario, and then you come to the sort of practical actions that everybody will take. So in my case, it's let's say it's certain, in my case it was to be mortgage free. That's an important thing because it gives me huge comfort. Now for that I have to work towards it, and one starts then making certain decisions, professionally, financially, to ensure that I don't miss out, which is very promising for today and tomorrow, and I should not be delaying it. Otherwise it's a story, a great story that I keep on telling, but it's something like I'm fooling myself. So I took certain decisions, and when I realized that those decisions I have taken, those actions I have taken, then there is nothing left for me to give a story to myself saying that let's push it a little bit further. And that's the reason, amazingly, we did start this firm at the peak of pandemic. And starting a firm, going independent in the area of leadership, team culture, which falls in the back bracket of discretionary spend in pandemic, doesn't seem to be may not seem to be very sensible. But to me it was sensible, because that sort of equation in my mind, which I had earlier, because of which I had not taken this, I was not willing to take the plunge. I had taken actions to address the first part of it, which is what's the worst case scenario that I may be subjecting myself and my near and dear ones, and what should I do to address it, to mitigate it. And that had happened. And therefore, if the world was in pandemic, that's okay. But for me, I think it was sensible to take that plunge, because in some way, in some shape or form, I had taken some steps earlier to mitigate that kind of a risk, so to say. So that's my way of looking at it. I'll pause and I'll check with you if you have any further questions in this area.
No, absolutely. It's so deep and profound, Vivek. Like when you mentioned that it's a push and pull between an extrinsic drivers and intrinsic drivers, right? So position, money, which corporate I work for, these are all extrinsic drivers, and we all are quite attached to it. But I think entrepreneurship, for being a successful entrepreneur and have a sustainable action in that area, one need to drive strength internally, right? From an inner sanctuary, as you very rightly pointed out. Because if you just peg your life's forces on extrinsic forces, it cannot be sustainable, because it's a journey from a corporate career, which is a life of certainty, to a life of probability. And when you are operating in a life of probability, you need internal strength to drive it. So very, very deep. Thank you very much for that. So Vivek, my follow-up questions on that would be, and you mentioned that even if you're physically tired, but when you go to sleep, even if you're mentally exhausted, but you have a feeling of greatness, right? It's a positive feeling you cannot explain. So can you link that to your vision? So what is your vision? Is it about just experiencing that sense of fulfillment that you have, or is there a bigger vision that you look up to? And what is that vision, and how much of that vision is linked to creating intrinsic value for your clients, for your customer, and what component of that vision is also linked to you making certain dollars, you reaching a certain size and valuation, or maybe a certain scale? So if you can give a visibility on your vision.
There was a thought that came to my mind, which was when you said that there is a life of certainty. And just going back to your earlier point, in corporates, I think one thing that people would have realized in the last 1.5 years, that even in corporates, there is this whole idea of having a life of certainty is, I would say, at best, an illusion, because the world is so dynamic that even in corporates, uh, I don't think so there's a life of certainty. So just a slight digression, I think, and through this interaction, I would like to share this view with your viewers. And maybe it's a sort of imagery that exists in my mind, and I'm trying to explain that. I live in a city which is very organized, and therefore uh, I'm capable to comfortably live in a city life which is extremely organized, whatever that means. Now, one fine day, I go for adventure outing. Somehow or the other, I miss the trail, and I'm lost, and nothing is working. And now I have to ensure that I am able to survive. I think that ability and capability to survive for a few hours or for a few days, by the time others come in to check, help me out, find me, that ability should be there. And why I'm trying to say this is maybe sort of an analogy, that people who would like to, and it's great to build careers around corporates, big, small. I think the way the world is shaping up is that the preference is to create value being a part of corporate. But always remember that if there's a time where you are on an adventure outing and you are lost in the jungle, have you built those skills that will help you to survive a few hours or a few days till the time the search party comes in and rescues you? Or you're completely unable to survive when you are lost in the jungle? Now, I'm not saying that entrepreneurship is a jungle. What I'm saying is that the world is such that there is no certainty. And if there is no certainty, then it's important to be cognizant of that fact and build capabilities so that I can comfortably survive for a certain duration of time. Uh, and I think that's important. It's not about being an entrepreneur. It's about cultivating entrepreneurial mindset and ability to survive on your own will become invariably important as we go through more discontinuous change and scenarios which we typically these days called VUCA ridden. So I think that's something that I wanted to talk about. I took a small digression. I'm sorry about that.
No, that's very important, because it's very well said, and that brings to the point that even maybe someone working in corporate, it's also entrepreneurial nature, right? The nature of jobs are changing. There's so much uncertainty built in. We all have seen that over the last 1 year, as you rightly said. So the focus is whether someone takes a path of entrepreneurship or a traditional corporate career, the focus should be in building value and building skills, which leads to building of intrinsic value, and the value that you create for yourself, which is like within corporate, if you're working, or the value you create as a company. Either ways, there has to be a value ascribed to your job or the skill that you do. The less commoditized it is, the better. The more commoditized skills it is, more you are at a risk of being redundant, so to say, as you rightly said, it's a VUCA world, right? And we have seen people have been extremely ruthless in terms of, for lack of better word, in terms of dealing with loyalty of employees. So the loyalty quotient no more has any value, right? In a capitalistic driven economy. So being an entrepreneur actually gives you that edge that you are facing the reality and not getting illusioned by the fact that there is a certainty that comes in, because at max what it brings is a few months more, right? If things go uncertain, an entrepreneur takes a hit immediately, and
Yeah.
maybe a corporate guy will
Yeah.
take it a few months later.
So a higher order of resilience is definitely required. I do agree that stable careers have their own value. It's easy to get a loan if you are working at a certain level of income is coming. You will show your bank statement. You will show that this company that I'm working for. So all those benefits are there, and they're great benefits. And some of the organizations in today's world also offer a lot of autonomy. I'm all game for that, but I'm saying that just to increase your repertoire of skills, just don't have blinkers to have skills only which are applicable in a corporate setup. You may still want to grow and spend your entire life in corporates, big, small, medium, whatever. But the way the world is changing, I think it's like if I'm lost in a jungle for a few hours or a few days, I should know basic survival skills. I should not go absolutely bonkers that, petrified and I don't know what to do now. Now, coming to your question of, I think, vision, one thing which I and my partner are very clear about is, and we also have this on our website, is making leaders, managers, employees human in an increasingly digital world. I think that's something that Pragyan definitely works towards that. Actually, Pragyan's meaning is also, that subtle intelligence and intellect which is required when you occupy positions of power, influence, when you can impact lives of a lot of people. It's not all about smart, quick decision making. It's about also getting into the depths of the decision making and understanding the implications and second order, third order implications. I think that's the idea that because of which I thought of giving the name Pragyan to our consulting firm. So leaders, I mean, everybody is intrinsically human. There are human qualities which are sort of, there in us. The question is, how much do I manifest them, and how fully do I manifest them, especially when there are pulls and pressures and demands and a lot of trade-offs and survival at times, and therefore those qualities needs to be reinforced, nurtured, role modeled, cascaded. So it's not like that we are, at times some people have said that, are you trying to question the way the world is moving towards digital and technology? No, not at all. It's a great world of digital and technology, and so much of power is in our hands. But I think that while we are doing all of this, you also see that there's pressure to perform quickly. There are organizations which have to give quarterly guidance. Even the boards may ask them to take quick decisions, show results. The average lifespan of CEOs sort of drastically has reduced. So if the average lifespan of a CEO is 3 years, 4 years for that matter, in all of this combination, where many a times the external world of business, which is also driven by stock markets, and at times you question that what is the relevance of a stock market going so high with respect to realities on the ground, and also the way really what the organization is. I don't want to name the organization, but I realize that there are organizations which in India were operating in March and April. March, I think, when the stock market came down 65, 70 rupees a share. Some of the amazingly great companies from some of the biggest conglomerates in India. I mean, is it really possible that the worth of the company shares, that's the value of the company? I don't think so. So what is happening is that all of this is forcing us to take at times very quick decisions. You know, and when you are taking very quick decisions, the world is changing so fast. There's technology, there's digital, there's this, there's that. Is there a possibility that the real human qualities are getting impacted? And if they are, then is there a small difference that people like us who believe in it can make in leaders in organizations? And even if you make a small difference, and that's why making leaders and managers and employees human in an increasingly digital world. That's sort of a motto of our company. I think we live by that credo. Our whole work is dedicated to that. So that's, I would say, the philosophical part of it. Now coming to the more, parts which can be immediately measured, like how big you want to be, what's going to be your, number of people, your type of clients, your revenue. Frankly speaking, that's something that at this point in time, it's very difficult to comment. What I believe is that the clients that we are serving, they should derive value and they should stay with us. And we should be their first port of call whenever they need any solution that needs to be co-created in the area of leadership, team, and culture. If we can do that on a consistent basis, I think rest all will follow. So if you ask me, the second part of more concrete measurable metric would be working and increasing the number of clients who believe in leadership, team, and culture as a great enabler for sustainable growth, and ensuring that we are their first port of call in the coming years to come whenever they face a problem or a challenge that needs to be solved together in these three areas. I think I would be very happy if we progress in that manner.
Oh, that's very heartening to hear, and thanks for being candid, Vivek. Yeah, I mean it makes sense. I mean, when you are enjoying the soup, why to bother about what it leads to? I mean, if everything goes well, things will fall in place. But I would be very keen to understand what is your definition of money, because now you're in a business, right? Because you also have to manage cash flow, you have to manage working capital, you would probably now and in future have to pay your salaries. So keeping all those variables in mind, I would want to have a summary definition of money for you or wealth for you.
I'll refer to some of the ancient Indian texts, which over the years have helped me in shaping up the fundamentals of my thinking. So the four pursuits of life that we know from an Indian perspective, and for the audience, I'll just state it: dharma, arth, kam, moksha. Okay. In that, money has its own relevance. Money is important. Money is critical for any individual, for any uh, entity like family or society or country to prosper, to grow. I think money has its own value, and it's important that we give enough importance to it, credibility to it. So I think the question there is, what is it for? Is it the end outcome, or is it the enabler to reach a certain outcome? And what is that outcome that you are gunning for? So let's suppose if you're gunning for a certain kind of an outcome, that making leaders and managers, employees human in a digital world, and we want to make an impact, and we want that impact to grow year on year, then definitely money plays a part, because to make an impact at scale, you would require resources, and to gather resources, you would require money. And I think that's important that we otherwise what happens is, you may have a very grand purpose, but that purpose will never, the rubber will never meet the road. The purpose will never help the people whom you are really trying to help, because you are not focusing on the fundamentals, and the fundamental is money. But the question is, what is money for? Money for the sake of money, or money as an enabler to magnify in a very righteous manner the purpose that you have defined for yourself and for your organization? And I think we have great examples in India of some uh, some conglomerates, and I don't want to specifically name one, who have proven to us that this can happen year on year, decade on decade, and definitely the role that they have played in nation and society building. So we can take a leaf out of their book, and if we can introduce it in Pragyan, even in a small way, I think that would be very fulfilling. So money for me is an enabler which should be given adequate importance, because that allows you to express your purpose in a consistent manner at scale. But if that becomes your purpose, I think that's where the whole game changes. And many a times I have personally seen that the transition happens and people don't realize. And therefore, it's important to keep reevaluating yourself, asking important questions, and having honest conversations and being in touch with people who can be honest and blunt on your face. You know, so those are the ones that on the path of success, if you realize that you have, there is a tendency of placing the horse before the cart, or what do you say, cart before the horse, whatever that saying is,
Yeah.
I think it's important that one should acknowledge that there is power in money, and that power is when you are successful, you can always go the other way around, where the purpose becomes the tail, and it's a very tricky thing. Now the money now becomes money for the sake of money, and there you need people who are honest and you value them and who can be blunt on your face, especially when you are riding the waves of success and saying that, look, you thought that you are pursuing a purpose, but where is the purpose now? And that's what money is for me. Very important, a critical element, and it falls, out of the four pursuits. In classical Indian text, it is the earth. Dharma, arth, kam, moksha. It comes in that arena, I think, and it has its own importance. Even the old wise Indian sages have given enough importance to it. They have never said it's not important. But one should be very clear.
That's
So
very
I don't
well
know whether
said.
it was
No, it's
heavy or
very
whatever,
deep.
but
It's actually very deep and very profound. It's so interesting, like, is money the fuel or is money the car, right? Is it a means to an end or it's an end in itself? And you very rightly said that, it sometimes gets dicey, even if you are intellectually clear that money should be your enabler to a bigger purpose, but you never know when the game changes and you are probably subconsciously doing it for money. And you said probably you need people who would bring you on track, people who are well wishers, but at the same time blunt at your face, and show you the right picture, because the biggest asset that we have is time. And in this game, when this happens, is we feel maybe another year, right, or maybe another couple of years, and those just keeps adding, and then you are too late for pursuing your purpose. And so many of us uh, die with unrealized potential, right, Vivek? I mean, if we go by the leadership philosophies and even leadership Western philosophies, I think hardly 10% of us even strive to realize our potential, because everything else becomes a survival force. I may be a millionaire in dollars, I may be a billionaire, but maybe I have achieved that and still I'm having a meaningless life. The reason being, I've never pursued my purpose. I've been good at money and I brought in loads and loads of money. So it's very deep and profound, Vivek, and it's very interesting. I wish we had the entire day to talk about it. But I'll just ask one last question before we hang up. What are
no.
your
Just to add to that, you've been a part of great premier institutions, and most of the management colleges. Some of the best folks, the top 5, 10, 15, 20 people, year on year, what's the kind of profession they choose, and why do they choose that profession? Phenomenally great, brilliant minds, top of the top charts, uh, you know, top rankers, year on year, premier institutes. You would know, you've seen them, you've met them a lot, what sort of professions they choose. And that's okay to choose any profession, and why. I think why is more important. If the why is largely externally falling outside, then of course you would find that there's a there's a sort of disharmony that builds up over a period of time. It's easier at times to walk away when you are earning X, but it's very challenging and requires a lot of courage and clarity to walk away when you are earning 100X, because that 100X comes with a lot of other kinds of packages and frills, and it makes you believe that all of those things are important. You are part of a certain club, and those things will certainly go away. That's one. And secondly, I think with respect to purpose and money, one also has to be clear. As you are riding the waves of success, you meet a lot of people which are required and which play a very important role, which value money, and at times money for the sake of money, because they know the art of making money. They also know the science of making money, and you tend to spend a lot of time with them because you want to attain scale, you want to grow, and the idea in your mind is that my purpose will become the impact of my purpose will increase as the scale increases, and to increase the scale I have to spend time in company of people who understand the art of making money. So what happens is, in this process, somewhere, you have a certain kind of company, and you only have those number of waking hours, so your company is of a certain kind of people. I think that's the point in time you should question also, what is the kind of company I'm keeping? This company is very critical, very important for me to take me to a level where I can increase the impact of my purpose. But where is that company that will tell me that the very idea of my purpose is getting diluted? So these are some of the thoughts I have.
No, it absolutely makes sense. And I've been just thinking, as you mentioned, in premier colleges in India and globally, the way placements happen, it's almost like you are on a road and a bus comes, right? And you don't know which bus to take. So you don't know your journey. You just look at the bus and how nice it is. Is it air conditioned? Does it have good seats? And you wake up, and then later on life unfolds, right? And in most of the cases, I would say, at least my experience with my friends and colleagues is, there is always a bit of disharmony built in, and it only increases with peer time. But because the responsibilities also exponentially increases as life unfolds, people manage to find a sweet spot in that and drive balance, but they tend to compromise on the meaning part. And one more aspect, if I even take a step back, like for instance, at one point of time in India, everybody wanted to do MBAs. Why? Because the only answer was it gives great salary. People would want to do engineers, like 20 years back. You are either a doctor or an engineer. Why? The answer is, again, you have a secure job, you have a good job. India is IT booming economy. But we never think in terms of what is it that I want and what is it where my strength lies. And I think the period from, as one graduates from school, like middle school and secondary school, to when they jump into that career bandwagon, that age group between maybe 16, 17 to 22, 23 is extremely critical, because that is the fulcrum or epicenter of how life will unfold in next 50 years or next 35 years of career. So if that is by design, that is not by design, but by default, then life also unfolds by default. And with every passing year, it only becomes more difficult. And you need extraordinary courage and conviction to drive change and align or realign with the purpose. And to add to it, the way the society is structured today, irrespective of which country we are talking about, the importance we have given, the one-sided, single-handed focus we have given to monetary outcomes or quality of life, or maybe our cars and the houses, has become so disproportionate that talks around purpose, values, goals, passion increasingly holds lower and lower importance.
It does, and many a times I have also seen glamorization of these terms. The value of these terms should come from within. Usually there comes a time when people start feeling an attraction towards these things, or the disharmony is so enormous that now they want to do something uh, in an area which means a lot to them. But there are always the other side to it, the other argument to it, that this whole talk around passion and this is bunkum, and nobody is passionate about getting into certain kinds of careers, but the most amount of money that you will make is only in these kind of careers. I've heard these kind of talks and arguments also by, I would say, very uh, diligent people. And I think to each his own. It's important, you cannot disapprove your own experience, what is happening inside you. If you feel that there is something which is missing, there is disharmony, and I need to take an action around it, I think it's important that one should consider these things. These are meaningful things. If you think there is no disharmony, everything is fine, and this and the limited discomfort that I have, that is manageable, fair enough. It's not about proving or disproving a point. It's about your own experience at times, which nobody can deny. And from your own experience, then you are able to assess your thoughts, assess the decisions that you have made, assess the change that you want to bring in, how committed you are, and how deep is your conviction. So, it's not about saying purpose, meaning, values, and putting them on a pedestal, or saying this is all bunkum and debunking the whole myth and world doesn't operate like this. But when you are experiencing certain things inside you, I think that is what you should question. That is what you should uh, try to assess. Why is it happening? And perhaps from there, certain answers will emerge, and then you'll be able to take decisions and actions which are more consistent uh, with who you are. And that's what my take is, because I've seen this debate going, in either directions, a glorification of passion, values, and I think it has its own place. So I think
That is clear. That is clear, Vivek. Thank you for that. My last question to you: what are your biggest fears at this stage of life?
would I be able to consistently tread this path that I have taken of building an organization which can create an impact in the lives of leaders, managers, and employees, making them more human, uh, in a consistent manner as I scale up? Because what I have seen is that as you scale up, that's when you have to balance multiple forces, right? And when you try to balance multiple forces, that's the time, I think, where people try to give stories to themselves to convince themselves about things that they don't believe in. So it's easy when you are two people to take certain calls, because you and only you are responsible. Good or bad, nobody else is responsible. But as you scale up, and you would want to scale up to create a larger impact, but as you scale up, there are multiple forces that come in, and you are usually also accountable for the people who have associated with you. Now, to ensure growth is also given to the people who believe in your vision and who are associated with you, uh, would there come a time where you know you start giving stories to yourself and compromising on your values? Because the ability, as you attain scale, is to deal with multiple forces, and many a times when you deal with multiple forces, uh, it's a slippery road. You have to be very clear how you're walking, because once you slip, then the precedence is set. So next time again you can make another exception, and perhaps a bigger exception, and then you realize that after some time there's a series of exceptions, and who you were and what you believed in is somewhere left behind, and you tend to become a completely different person and a completely different organization of a different character. So I think that's my fear.
Okay, understood. No, this is great, Vivek. Thank you very much. I mean, all the conversation, as usual, as we have been doing this for so many years now, have been very deep, much beyond the extrinsic or superficial realm of life. So it's very insightful. Thank you very much for your time, and it has been a pleasure to have you today for the session.
Well, thank you very much for inviting. This was wonderful here. I mean, ever since I've started Pragyan, I have never thought about it in a very, I've thought about it, but having 1 hour of sort of deep conversations around it and asking such incisive questions, I must congratulate you that this was amazing. This was very helpful for me, kind of questions that you asked. For example, the last question, in a way, it was a curveball for me. I had to actually think that, fears are not the usual fears that usually we talk about, but what is the fear? It's a great question, I must say. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Pleasure, Vivek. Look forward and wish you a great success.